Hi, everybody. This is Allison from Allylat Creations. How are you? Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you have yet to do so. And if you get anything from my work, a connect, a dot, an epiphany, a mind explosion, a new book to read, a new author to explore, please consider supporting my work. All the links are at the bottom of the description of this video. Allylat Creations211 is where you can find all the lovely art pieces here. Paintings, paintings, drawings, all kinds of fun stuff. And if you're interested in any of it, please email me. All that is in the description of the channel, also on my website. And that, if you're interested, help me out. Email me, but also make sure you get back to me. I know some of my pieces do take time to make, and then people don't check their emails, and then I do a piece and it sits here. So I like to give your stuff out. So please email me back. Hi. Also, another way to help me out is memberships. I have 2 tiers now. After celebrating 4 years of this channel, I upped a tier to 4D. If anybody wants to invest in that, you get 3D stuff and then more. So it's up to you if you're interested in that. 3D memberships is just the basic, and you guys get oracle card readings once a week. They're about an hour and 15. Sometimes it's shorter, sometimes it's longer. It's up to spirit and my schedule. But I give you about an hour oracle card reading. That's, if I were to do one for you privately, it's $40. And yes, I'm on the cheaper side. But that's a lot of value, and you're getting that 4 times a month. And you get entries into my raffles when I do hold them. Unfortunately, right now I'm still getting myself back to best financially. So shipping is really expensive right now. The last raffle that I was able to hold put me in the hole a little bit. So we're gonna just keep on trucking, and if I can do them, I will. But 4D is going to do more about journaling, maybe some meditations and some art that you could do, and helping you do some healing work. So look out for those videos if you're interested. I might make it exclusive to 3D, and we'll see what happens. But I do have another tier, and these are just ways of helping me out. Things are really touch and go in life right now. So, yeah. Today we're going to pick up on Blavatsky, the Holy of Holies, its Degradation. And I'm kind of really excited to read this. Just to preface, I have dyslexia. I also have really bad teeth. My projection of a lot of words from this book are really hard for me to get out. It gets frustrating. So I do tend to skip names and things I can't pronounce. If I took the time, I probably would be able to practice, but life is crazy and whatever. So most of us know already about that, but those of you new to my channel, I do have deficits and learning disabilities that kind of catch me up sometimes. I also see words that are not there, and sometimes I don't see many things. Just my brain is neurodivergent in different ways. It's wired differently. So I hope you guys can just go with the flow and get in some good reading here. The sanctum sanctorum of the ancients, that recess on the western side of the temple, which was enclosed on 3 sides by blank walls and had its only aperture or door hung over with a curtain, also called the adytum, was common to all ancient nations. Nevertheless, a great difference is found between the secret meanings of this symbolical place in the esotericism of the pagans and that of later Jews. though the symbology of it was originally identical throughout ancient race and nations. The Gentiles, by placing in the Adatum a sarcophagus or a tomb, and the solar god to whom the temple was consecrated, held it as pantheists in the greatest veneration. They regarded it in its esoteric meaning as a symbol of resurrection, cosmic, solar, or diurnal, and human. It embraced the wide range of periodical and in time punctual manvaradas, or the reawakenings of cosmos, earth, and man to new existences, the sun being the most poetical and also the most grandiose symbol of the same in heaven, and man in his reincarnations on earth. The Jews, whose realism, if judged by the dead letter, was as practical and gross in the days of Moses as it is now, in the course of their estrangement from the gods of their pagan neighbors, consummated a national and Levitical poety by the device of setting forth their Holy of Holies as the most solemn sign of their monotheism exoterically, while seeing it in but a universal phallic symbol esoterically. While the Kabbalists knew but Aeon Soph and the gods of the mysteries, the Levites had no tomb, no god in their Adatum, but that sacred Ark of the Covenant, their Holy of Holies. When the esoteric meaning of this recess is made clear, however, the profane will be better able to understand why David danced uncovered before the Ark of the Covenant and was so anxious to appear vile for the sake of his Lord and base it in his own sight. The Ark is a Navi-form Arga, if I'm saying that right, of the mysteries. Parkhurst, who has a long dissertation upon it in his Greek dictionary and who never breathes a word about it in the Hebrew lexicon, explains it thus. In this application, answers to the Hebrew reist, or wisdom, a word which had the meaning of the emblem of the female generative power, the arg, or arca, in which the germ of all nature was supposed to float or brood on the great abyss during the interval which took place after every mundane cycle. Quite so, and the Jewish Ark of the Covenant had precisely the same significance, with the supplementary addition that instead of a beautiful and chaste sarcophagus, the symbol of the matrix of nature and resurrection, as in the Sanctum Sanctorum of the pagans, they had the ark made still more realistic in its construction by the two cherubs set up on the coffer or Ark of the Covenant facing each other, with their wings spread in such a manner as to form a perfect yoni, as now seen in India. Besides which, the generative symbol had its significance enforced by the four mystic letters of Jehovah's name, namely Yad, Hey, Vad, and Vow. Vadve, Hadve, however you say that. Which means the membrane virile is Jad, Vad, Yad, Yad, Kabbalah. He, the womb, Va, a crook or a hook, a nail. And again, he, meaning and also an opening, the whole forming the perfect bisexual emblem or symbol, the male and female symbol. Perhaps also when people realize the true meaning of the office and title of the Kadash Kashem, I think the holy ones, or the consecrated to the temple of the Lord, the Holy of Holies of the latter may assume the aspect from far from edifying. Icarus, Icarus again is Io or Jehovah, and Baal or Adon, like Bacchus, was a phallic god who shall ascend into the hill, the high place of the Lord, as the holy King David, who shall stand in the place of his Kadashu. Kadesh may mean in one sense to devote, hallow, sanctify, and even to initiate or to set apart, but it also means a ministry of lascivious, I'm not getting that word out right, the Venus worship, and the true interpretation of the word Kadesh is bluntly rendered in Deuteronomy, Hosea, and Genesis from verses 15 to 22. The holy Kadeshuth of the Bible was identical as to the duties of their office with the Nadish girls of the later Hindu pagodas. The Hebrew Kadeshim, or Gali, lived by the house of the Lord, where the women wove hangings from the grove, or the bust of Venus Astari, says verse the 7th in the 23rd chapter of Kings. The dance performed by David round the ark was the circle dance, said to have been prescribed by the Amazons for the mysteries. Such was the dance of the daughters of Shiloh and the leaping of the prophets of Baal. It was simply a characteristic of the Sabaean worship, for it denoted the motion of the planets around the sun. That the dance was a Bacchic frenzy is apparent. Sistra were used on the occasion, and the taunt of Michael and the king's reply are very expressive. Isis unveiled. The ark in which are preserved the germs of all living things necessary to repeople the earth represents the survival of life and the supremacy of spirit over matter through the conflict of the opposing powers of nature. And the astro-theosophic chart of the Western Rite, the ark corresponds with the navel, and it's placed at the sinister side, the side of the woman, the moon, one of whose symbols is the left pillar of Solomon's temple, Boaz. The umbilicus is connected through the placenta with the receptacle in which are fructified the embryos of the race. The ark is a sacred agra of the Hindus, and thus the relation in which it stands to Noah's Ark may be easily inferred when we learn that Arga was an oblong vessel used by the high priestess as a sacrificial chalice in the worship of Isis, Astray, and Venus Aphrodite, all of whom were goddesses of the generative powers of nature or of matter, hence representing symbolically the ark containing the germs of all living things. Mistaken is he who accepts the Kabbalistic works of today and the interpretations of the Zohar by the rabbis for the genuine Kabbalistic lore of old. For no more today than in the day of Frederick von Schelling does the Kabbalah, accessible to Europe and America, contain much more than runes and fragments, much distorted remnants still of the primitive system, which is the key to all religious systems. The oldest system, Chaldean Kabbalah, was identical. The latest renderings of the Zohar are those of the synagogue in the early centuries, the Torah dogmatic and uncompromising. Interesting. The king's chamber in Cheops pyramid is thus an Egyptian holy of holies. On the days of the mysteries of initiation, the candidate representing the solar god had to descend into the sarcophagus and represent the energizing ray entering into the fecund womb of nature. Emerging from it on the following morning, he typified the resurrection of life after the change called death. In the great mysteries, his figurative death lasted 2 days, when with the sun he arose on the third morning after a last night of the most crucial trials, while the postulant represented the sun, the all-vivifying orb that resurrects every morning, but to impart life to all, the sarcophagus was a symbolic of the female principle. This in Egypt, its form and shape changed with every country, provided it remained a vessel, a symbolic navis or boat-shaped vessel, and a container symbolically of germs or the germ of life. In India, it is the golden cow through which the candidate for Brahmanism has to pass if he desires to be a Brahmin and to become a Doria. Mhm. Reborn a second time, the crescent form, Arga, of the Greeks was the type of the Queen of Heaven, Diana, or the moon. She was the great mother of all existences, as the sun was the father. The Jews previous to, as well as after their metamorphosis of Jehovah into male God, worshipped Azaroth, which made Isaiah declare, "Your new moons and feasts are my soul hateth," saying which he was evidently unjust. Astaroth and the new moon, the crescent Arga festivals, had no worse significance as a form of public worship than had the hidden meaning of the moon in general, which was Kabbalistically connected directly with and sacred to Jehovah, as is well known, with the sole difference that one was the female and the other the male aspect of the moon and the star Venus. The sun, the father, the moon, the mother, and Mercury, Thoth, the son, were the earliest trinity of the Egyptians, who personified them in Osiris, Isis, and Thoth, Hermes. The seven great gods divided into two triads, and the highest god, the sun, or the lower Greek word, whose powers reside respectively in Mars, Mercury, and Venus, and the higher triad, the three unseen gods who dwell in the moon, Jupiter, and Saturn. This requires no proof. Azeroth was, in one sense, an impersonal symbol of nature, the ship of life carrying throughout the boundless sidereal ocean the germs of all being. And when she was not identified with Venus like every other queen of heaven, to whom cakes and buns were offered in sacrifice, Astaroth became the reflection of the Chaldean Nua, the universal mother, female Noah considered as one with the ark, and of the female triad, Anna, Belita, and Davikina, called when blended into one sovereign goddess, lady of the nether, abyss, mother of gods, queen of the earth, and queen of fecundity. Later, Belita or Damati, the sea, the mother of the city of Iraq, the great Chaldean Acropolis, became Eve, and now she is Mary, the Virgin in the Latin Church, represented as standing on the crescent moon and at times on the globe to vary the program. The Navi or ship-like form of the crescent, which blends in itself all those common symbols of the ship of life, such as Noah's Ark, the Yani of the Hindus, and the Ark of the Covenant, is the female symbol of the universal mothers of the gods, and is now found under its Christian symbol in every church as the nave, from navis, the ship. The navis, the sidereal vessel, is fructified by the spirit of life, the male god, or as the learned keenly in his Apocalyptus calls it very appropriately, the Holy Spirit. In Western religious symbology, the crescent was the male, the full moon, the female aspect of the universal spirit. The mystic word alam, which the Prophet Muhammad prefixed to many chapters of the Quran, alludes to her as the alam, the immaculate virgin of the heavens, and the sublime ever falling into the ridiculous. It is from this root alam that we have to derive the word alem, the Egyptian dancing girls. The later are virgins of the same type as a not touching that with a 10-foot pole in India. And the female Kadeshim, the holy ones of the Jewish temples, those consecrated to Jehovah, who represented both sexes, whose holy functions in the Israelite fanes were identical with those of the Notchin. Can't get it out. And here's all the words that Allison can't pronounce. Now, somebody I can't pronounce name declares that Io means the moon in the dialect of the Argians, and it was one of the names of the same in Egypt, says Jablonski. Io, lunam, significant. It's all written in Latin. The pillar and circle Io, now constituting the first decimal number, and which with Pythagoras was perfect number contained in the Tractatus, became later a preeminently phallic number amongst the Jews, foremost of all, with whom it is male and female Jehovah. This is how a scholar explains it. I find on the Rosetta Stone of Ullaman the word mouth, also in serif. Another name, the name of the moon used as a cycle of time, hence the lunar month from the hieroglyphic. It's like a half circle with the V or an angle there, right angle, with the pentagram and a circle and a dot as determinatives given as the Coptic IOH or IOH, the Hebrew. Once again, stuff I can't read because I don't know Hebrew that well, may also be used as IOH for the letter Yao, or I want to say that's Yod, was used for O and U and for V and W. This before the Masorah, or which the dot was used as O, U, and V or W. Now I had worked it out by original search that the great distinctive function of the God named Jehovah was designative of the influence of the moon as a causative or of generation, and as its exact value as a lunar year in the natural measure of days, as you will fully see. And here comes a linguistic same word for a source far more ancient, the Coptic, or rather form, the Old Egyptian in time of the Coptic from MS. This is a more remarkable than Egyptianology, compares this with the little which it knows about the Theban triad composed of Ammon, mouth, or Maut, and their son Khonso. The triad was when united contained in the moon as their common symbol, and when separated it was Khonso, who was a god Lunas, being thus confounded with the thought and Phalat. However you pronounce these names is mind-bending my brain. His mother Maut, or mouth, the name signifying mother, by the by, not the moon, which was only her symbol, is called the Queen of Heaven, the Virgin, as she is the aspect of Isis, Hathor, and other mother goddesses. She was less the wife than the mother of Ammon, whose distinct title is the husband of his mother. In something Cairo, this triad is represented, number 1981, Greek period, as a mummy god holding in his hand three different scepters and bearing the lunar disk on his head, the characteristic tress of hair showing the design of representing it as that of an infant god, or the sun in the triad. He was the god of destinies in Thebes and appears under two aspects, one as Khonso, the lunar god and lord of Thebes, Nefer Hatpo, he who is absolute repose, and of Kanso Iri Sakuru, or Kanso, who executes destiny. The former preparing the events and conceiving them for those born under the generative influence, the latter putting them into action. Under theogonic permeations, Ammon becomes Horus, Hor Amon, and mouth Isis is seen suckling him in a statuette of the Saitic period. In his turn, in this transformed triad, Khonso becomes Thot Lunas, he who operates salvation. His brow is crowned with the head of an ibis, decorated with the lunar disk and the diadem called Iotif. Now, all these symbols are certainly found reflected in some belief them identical with the Yav or Jehovah of the Bible. This will be made plain to anyone who reads the source of measures or Hebrew Egyptian mystery and understands the undeniable, clear, and mathematical proofs that the esoteric foundations or the systems used in the building of the Great Pyramid and the architectural measurements in the Temple of Solomon, whether the latter be mythical or real, Noah's Ark and the Ark of the Covenant are the same. If anything in the world can settle the dispute, that the old as much as the latter Jews, post-Babylonian, and especially the former, built their theogony and religion on the very same foundation as all pagans did, it is the work in question. And now it may be as well to remind the reader of that which was said of IAO in our work, Isis Unveiled. And now I have to increase the size of this because holy hell, I have no eyesight. No other deity affords such a variety of etymologies as Jeho, nor is there any name which can be variously pronounced. It is only by associating it with the Messianic points and that later rabbis succeeded in making Jehovah read Adonai or Lord or Philobabulus spells in Greek letters. Theodoret says that the Samaritans pronounced it Jahi, Yahara, and the Jews Yaho, which would make it, as we have shown, IAHO. Diodorus states that amongst the Jews they related the Moses called the god Io. It is on the authority of the Bible itself, therefore, that we maintain that before his initiation by Jethro, his father-in-law Moses had never known the word Yahweh. The above receives corroboration in a private letter from a very learned Kabbalist in Stanza 4, and elsewhere it is stated that exoterically Brahma neuter, so flippantly and so often confused by the Orientalists with Brahma, the male, is sometimes called Kala Hansa, swan in the eternity. And the esoteric meaning of Ahamza is given. I am he, so Ham being equal to Sa, he in Aham, I, a mystic anagram and permeation. It is also the four-faced Brahma, the perfect cube forming itself within from the infinite circle. And again, the use of the 1, 3, 5, and 7, 7 equals 14 as an esoteric hierarchy of the Daihan Kohans is explained. On this said correspondent comments in this way. Of the 1, 3, 5, and twice 7 intended and very especially 13,514, which on a circle may read as 31415 or pi value. I think there cannot be a possibility of doubting, and especially when considered with the simple marks on Sar, chakra, or circle of Vishnu. But let me carry your description a step further. You say the 1, the egg, the 6, and the 5 give the numbers 1065, the value of the firstborn. If it be so, then in 1065, we have the famous Jehovah's name, the Jave, or Jupiter, and by change of H to N, then, or the Latin June or Juno, the base of the Chinese riddle, the key measuring numbers of Sinai and Jehovah coming down on the mount, which numbers 1065, are but the use of our ratio of 113 to 355, because 1065 equals 355 times 3, which is circumference to the diameter of 113 times 3 equals 339. Thus, the firstborn of Brahma, Prajapati, or the Demiurgos, indicates a measuring use of the circular relation taken from the chakra or Vishnu, and as stated above, the divine manifestation takes form of life in the firstborn. Holy crap, it gets into math, and yikes. Sorry, guys, it's going to get rough. It is a most singular thing at the entrance passage to the king's chamber, the measurement from the surface of the great step in the grand gallery to the top of the said gallery is by the very careful measure of Piazzi Smith, 339 inches. And they do like this equation on the side. Take A as a center with this radius described a circle. The diameter of the circle will be 339 times 2 equals 678. And these numbers are those of the expression and the raven in the dove and raven scenes or pictures of the flood of Noah. The radius is taken to show division into two parts, which are 1065 each for 113 men times 6, 678, and the diameter to a circumference of 1065 times 2. So we have here an indication of cosmic man on this higher grade or step at the entrance of the king's chamber, the Holy of Holies, which is the womb. Now this passage is of such a height that man to enter it must stoop, but a man's upright is 113, and broken or stooping becomes 133 over 2 equals 56.5, or 5.65 times 10, or Jehovah. That is, he personifies him as entering the Holy of Holies. But by Hebrew esotericism, the chief function of Jehovah was child-giving, and that because by the numbers of his name, he was the measure of the lunar year, which cycle of time, because by his factor of 7, it ran so coordinately with the periods of the quickening, variably, and gestation was taken as a causative of the generative action, and therefore was worshipped and besought. This discovery connects Jehovah still more with all the other creative and generative gods, solar and lunar, especially with King Sama, the Hindu Deus Lunis, the moon, because of this esoteric influence attributed to the planet in occultism. There we are with other corroborations of it. However, in Hebrew tradition itself, Adam is spoken of in Maimonides, the guide of the perplexed, truly in two aspects: as a man like all others born of a man and a woman, and as the prophet of the moon, the reason of which is now made apparent and has to be explained. Adam, as a supposed great progenitor of the human race, is, as Adam Cadman, made in the image of God, a however you pronounce that word, image. Therefore, the Hebrew word sark and in kava are literally translated lingam, phallus, and yani, notwithstanding their translation in the Bible, male and female. As said there, God creates man in his own image. And In the image of God created him, male and female created he them. The androgyny Adam Cadman. Now the Kabbalistic name is not that of living man, nor even of a human or divine being, but of the two sexes or organs of procreation, called in Hebrew with that usual sincerity of language preeminently biblical, scar, and kava. These two being therefore the image under which the Lord God appeared usually to his chosen people. That this is so is now undeniably proven by almost all the symbologists and Hebrew scholars, as well by the Kabbalah. Therefore, Adam is in one sense Jehovah. This makes plain another general tradition in the Eastern in tradition in the East mentioned in Georgie's Notes and Observations upon several passages in Scripture, and quoted by Hargrave Jennings in his Phallicism, that Adam was commanded by God that his dead body should be kept above ground till committed to the middle of the earth by a priest of the Most High God. Therefore, Noah daily prayed in the ark before the body of Adam, or before the phallus in the ark, or Holy of Holies again. He who is a Kabbalist and accustomed to the incessant permeation of biblical names, once they are interpreted numerically and symbolically, will understand what it meant. Jehovah, from the two words of which his name is composed, makes up the original idea of male female as birth or genitor. For the Hebrew letter, I don't know what that one is, was the membrum virile, and Hua was Eve. So the perfect one, as originator of measures, takes also the form of birth origin as hermaphrodite one, hence the phallic use of form. Besides, the same author shows and demonstrates numerically and geometrically that Earth, Adam, man, and Ha, Adam, are cognate with each other and are personified in the Bible under one form as the Egyptian Hebrew Mars, god of the generation, and that Jehovah or Jah is Noah. Jehovah is Noah in Hebrew, which would be, or literally in English, inch. The above affords then a key to the said traditions. Noah, a divine permeation, the supposed savior of humanity who carries in his ark, or whatever that, I'm getting exhausted here. The moon, the germs of all living things, worships before the body of Adam, which body is the image of and a creator itself. Hence, Adam is called the prophet of the moon, and the Arga, or Holy of Holies, of the Yod. This also shows the origin of the Jewish popular belief that the face of Moses is in the moon. The spots in the moon for Moses and Jehovah are once more permeations, as has been shown Kabbalistically. Says the author of The Source of Measures, there is one fact in regard to Moses and his works too important to be omitted. When he is instructed by the Lord as to his mission, the power name assumed by the deity is I am that I am, the Hebrew words, a variety reading of, sorry, I don't know Hebrew, and she doesn't give a breakdown of it. Now Moses is more Hebrew letters and equals 345. Add the values of the new form of the name Jehovah, 21 plus 501 to 21 equals 543, or by a reverse reading 345, thus showing Moses to be a form of Jehovah in the combination 21 divided by 2 equals 10.5, or reversed 501, so that the Asher, or that in I am that I am, is simply a guide to use for 21, or 7 times 3, 505, 501 to the second equals 251 plus a very valuable pyramid number. For a clear explanation for the benefit of non-Kabbalists, we put it thus: I am that I am is in Hebrew. It's all a breakdown, and I don't know how to even describe this, which relates to the process of descending in fire on the mount to make man, and which is explained to be but a check in use of the numbers of the mountains. For on one side we have 10 plus 5 plus 6 equals 21, down the middle 501, and on the other side 6 plus 5 plus 10 equals 21. Oh my gosh. I'm going to leave it here, guys. I'm getting ravaged here. There's just a lot of numbers. Blavatsky does this. Also, the Curtis books does this, where they break everything into numbers, and I don't know the Hebrew to make it make sense to you because they're all different Hebrew letters equating to numbers, and I just don't know what those are. So even if I were to read it out, it doesn't make sense. So I do apologize for that. It gets frustrating when you don't know. And I don't want to mislead or misread a Hebrew letter. I'm not here to disrespect anything, so I'm going to leave it here. We're going to continue on next time. I'm going to write it down so I don't forget, and you guys are holding me accountable to it. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Sorry, there was a lot there that I could not pronounce and a lot there that just doesn't seem like it makes sense. Some of it does, but as with Blavatsky, not an easy read for sure. Um, Sending all of you love, light, compassion, grace, shielding, and protective energy. Please go within, be the shoulder, be the lighthouse, sprinkle and seed your truths, light that path forward, and I hope to see you on the next one. Until the next time, guys, thanks for watching. Thank you, and my gratitude to each and every one of you. Make sure you also are hyping my videos if you are liking the content that I put out, especially lives and the Curtis books and other stuff. Hyped is not on every one of my videos, but if you do see it and you didn't run out of your hypes during the day, please hype one of my videos. That'd be phenomenal and a really big help for me. So until the next one, guys, have a blessed and beautiful night and see you on the next one. Bye for now.